going straight into our next fireside chat. So we're starting with a particular highlight, and the moderator of our next chat is getting up extremely early her time. So we have San Francisco-based Candy Cheng, and she is insider, formerly known as Business Insider, senior correspondent covering startups and venture capital. Formerly, she was Bloomberg head of tech interviews and executive producer of Studio 1.0 with Emily Cheng. Please do give her a warm welcome for an exciting fireside chat conversation. Or please welcome Candy and her fireside chat partner into this really, really cool conversation. Thank you very much.
For welcoming me. I'd like to introduce our guest, John Oringer. He's the founder and executive chairman of Shutterstock, a publicly traded, creative, and full-service solutions platform with over 2 million active customers in more than 150 countries. John is now based in Miami and an investor as well in Moderator Holdings, a seed and pre-seed investment firm and incubator. John, I don't wake up at 3 in the morning for anyone, but of course I couldn't pass up the opportunity to speak with you. You've built a very successful career as an entrepreneur. You became New York's first billionaire when Shutterstock went public in 2012. So can you tell me about early days of grit and hustle? What was a young John Oringer like as a teenager before you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was always interested in building. So I had started companies starting in college in my dorm room. And I was always experimenting with different software products that I thought people would want to purchase. Things that I thought I would buy as well. They were little privacy and security kind of software programs. Over time, I started to realize I needed to market them in an internet way. There were no image resources. I started taking my own pictures. I started putting those on a website. I started selling them by subscription. Shutterstock was a side project. And over the course of that year, became my main project as the business started to get bigger and bigger. So we've been building that company ever since 2003. And today it's a over $4 billion public company.
I often hear stories about founders early days who max out their credit cards, live off of ramen in pursuit of their startup dreams. I'm sure many people in the audience can relate to this. Your founding story with Shutterstock was non-traditional in the sense that it was not the only company you were running at the time. I was actually very surprised to hear this. You're running 10 companies simultaneously in the early days of Shutterstock. Can you tell us a little bit about those other ideas and if any of them took off as much as Shutterstock has?
Yeah, none of them took off like Shutterstock did. They were all profitable. A lot of them went out of business pretty quickly because the amount of resources they took weren't equal to the amount of revenue they were producing. I believe in this kind of multiple iron in the fire type strategy. There are three things with a startup. There's the founder, there's the idea, and there's the timing. And you don't know which one. You don't know if your timing's right. You don't know if the idea is right, and the founder has to have a particular passion for that subject. And sometimes the stars align, and sometimes they don't. There's a little bit of randomness to this, and that's why when I started, I figured I would start with 10 different ideas at once. They were all, if you fast forward 20 years later, they're all big publicly traded companies, those ideas, not necessarily the ones I started, but turns out that they were trends in the internet. One was an internet dating site. One was a legal services firm. One was a privacy and security software company. They were all ideas that probably were off on timing. But for some reason, Shutterstock hit all three. The idea was right, the timing was right, and my passion aligned with it, and it worked. And actually, we're taking that same kind of strategy with Pareto, following the Pareto principle.
I want to talk about that a bit later, but first, I want to dig into Shutterstock's growth story and clarify the role that you have now. So you transitioned from CEO to executive chairman in April of 2019. I'm curious, how do you split your time between that and what you're working on as an investor now? And how involved are you still with the company overall?
Yeah, Shutterstock's still about half my time. I spend a lot of time on Shutterstock. I think about it all day. I wake up thinking about it. I dream about it. And there's a lot of there's still a lot of growth and amazing things Shutterstock can do and is doing. My focus has changed though. Instead of being in the day-to-day details of that business, I'm more at a strategic in a strategic role, thinking about capital allocation, M&A, bigger items on the roadmap, and helping Stan kind of continue to build the business. Stan's our new CEO, almost 2 years now. And it's a different role, but it's still very well integrated into my life.
This is a company that you ran for 17 years. It's your baby. I'm sure it was a roller coaster ride, just like raising a child, ups and downs. And it probably wasn't all smooth sailing in the very earliest days. So can you tell us about the early days and what kind of challenges you face while scaling the company, especially in those early years? And I also want to talk about when it went public, because I think those are two key moments in the life cycle of a company.
Yeah, the early scaling was not easy. There was the chicken and egg kind of marketplace problem where I didn't have either side, but I knew the thing should exist. So I needed to take the pictures myself, essentially, to get the product going. I created the product for myself. These were the images I was using to sell the other products I was building. Eventually, I started to realize when I put it out there, other people wanted it. I couldn't supply all the images myself, so I started to recruit other photographers. I opened it up to be a marketplace, and that's how the initial network effect started to move, and that's how it started to grow. Those were the beginning days. The transition over time, we continued to build it, added other asset types, video, vectors, illustrations. Added creative types of tools to the platform. In 2012, we took the company public, and that was a turning point. I continued to run the company for 8 or 9 more years or so, and as a publicly traded company, and it was a different role. I got further and further away from the beginning, the startup kind of phase of companies, and I knew that eventually, at some point, I wanted to get back to that. And I sort of worked my way towards trying to figure out how to have the best of both worlds, continuing to run the big strategic aspects of Shutterstock and also get back to that kind of initial startup phase when I was running 11 companies at once.
I want to talk about your move to Miami and what you're doing now. So you co-founded Pareto Holdings, an investment and incubation firm, along with your co-founder Orlando. Can you tell us what it is, exactly what you're building, and what kind of businesses you are incubating?
Yeah, it's a unique structure. Pareto is it's part incubator. It's part accelerator, it's part investment vehicle, it's part founder magnet and kind of startup engine. There are some differences from other structures that kind of look like this out there. It's all of our own money. We're not taking outside money. We've made over 150 investments in the past year. We continue to also incubate businesses, a few businesses a year that we we start on our own. They're our own ideas. We look for founders for those ideas, and we try to make that magic I was talking about happen, where you have the timing, you have the founder, and you have the idea, and they all line up. And we've been able to have a lot of success with this.
Are there any particular company trends that you are watching? And I just want to clarify, because I think the audience would be interested in knowing, you don't have to be in Miami to apply to your program, right? You accept founders from all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, today we're living in a very hybrid work environment. We're trying to base as many of these companies in Miami as possible. I like building new tech ecosystems, just like we did back in the early 2000s in New York. It didn't exist in the same way that it does now, and I feel like we were part of that. And so, seeing other cities kind of grow in the same way is really exciting. Yeah, sorry, what was the other question?
About welcoming founders all over the world, and your seed program that I covered just about a month ago, which enables founders to receive funding increase. So you're doing something very special within 48 hours, where most funds that people apply to usually take weeks, months, sometimes multi-months in order to hear back from an investor. So can you tell us about this pre-seed funding program?
Sure. Yeah, we move really fast, and I think that's a super important aspect of all of this. In the super early stage of a business, that actual startup moment. Again, you don't know if the timing, the founder, or the idea are all going to match up in that magical way, and so there is a point of diminishing return to continue to kind of analyze those three aspects and figure out whether it's an investment or not. All of this, the reason why it's called Pareto is we believe it follows the Pareto principle, where we'll eventually spend 80% of our time on 20% of the ideas. What we do hope is that we find founders that are willing to do what I did in the early stage, which is iterate through many different ideas, because the founder is probably the most important part of all of this. And if a founder is able to move through several ideas the same way I did early on in my career, they can get to that special moment where all three of those aspects align. If I didn't keep going, Shutterstock may not have happened. I didn't think Shutterstock was going to be the one. So you need to be very open-minded about what idea is going to work for that time.
Is this something you definitely recommend to startup founders, to have 10 ideas all simultaneously working at the same time?
Well, I think you need a strategy where if you hit a dead end, there's another route you can take. So you always need to be kind of leaving these pathways open on your product map to be able to pivot quickly. And I do think that's an important part of this. If you put all of your eggs in one basket early on, you may hit that dead end and not have any optionality. So whether it's working on one idea that has multiple pathways to success, or multiple ideas that you can run in parallel to figure out which one of those ideas reaches that level of success, I do think that having that flexibility early on is important to be an entrepreneur and be a successful one at that.
I'm curious what the needs of an entrepreneur in, say, France or Germany different from an entrepreneur in Miami or Silicon Valley. You guys are accepting applicants from everywhere right now. So what have been some of the differences you've seen in your opinion, what are U.S. investors missing out on if they don't have a global investment thesis?
Yeah, well, I think COVID has changed the way we all work. Everything is hybrid. Everything is global. Everything is very distributed. Even like this conference right here, we're all sitting in different places, yet we're able to make something pretty cool happen. I think that change in the way that we work has has created that environment where it doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter where. We used to say it didn't matter where you were. It didn't matter where some of your employees are. We proved that is true, and so we run this firm. We run Pareto in that same way, and today. You can apply from anywhere in the world, and we'll help you build your distributed team wherever that may be. And we've found a lot of success doing this. And some of our companies that have gotten some traction, a lot of the people haven't even met in person yet.
7 weeks into the program, and since my article came out, how is it going? How many startups have you actually funded through the program? And can you just give us some broad-based themes on the companies that are applying? Are they mostly fintech or consumer tech? Just give us an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah, so 7 weeks ago, we announced this program. Anybody can apply within a week. If you're accepted into the program, there's money in a bank account and a company formed, and you're ready to go. We got about 400 applicants, and we continue to get them every single day they're coming in. And we have... We've funded probably close to 8 of them, I think, at this point. So there's it's definitely working, and it's a pretty unique deal flow that we have. There are people from all over the world. We're not looking for super flashy decks. We're looking for founders that have grit. We're looking for founders that want to break through any brick wall that's put in front of them to get to success, and we're going to continue to evaluate these applications as they come in, and it's been pretty cool to meet all of these new entrepreneurs.
For those of us who don't know, can you explain a little bit about what it means to incubate? Because I think around the world, everyone knows YC and knows what an accelerator does, right? But what you're doing is unique in that you're actually rolling up your sleeves and you're right there with the founders in early days advising. And it's not like a YC program where you have a cutoff and you graduate, you do your demo day. You actually keep investing in the company and in the founders that you accept into the program, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's different from Y Combinator. We're not raising outside money. We're using our own. So we have a lot of control over the entire process, and we can also move really, really fast. And that's the key. I mean, speed is really important right now. If you don't get back to a good founder within a very short amount of time, somebody else is going to take that deal and run with it. And I think entrepreneurs see how fast we move, and that's also reflected in how we deal with the later stages of that startup phase as well. We help our employees hire as quickly as possible. We help them get to their next round as quickly as possible. We help get their MVP into market as quickly as possible, and that's really the way to do this, we believe.
What, in your opinion, has been the biggest lifestyle change for you, going from founder into investor? A lot of the VCs I talk to kind of go back and forth between the two roles over the years, but I'm wondering for you, and also the move to Miami has kind of changed your day and your structure as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, after 20 years of being CEO, I just it wears on you a bit, and having that balance now is really really beneficial for me personally. I have no problem getting deep into the details of a business and working with an entrepreneur on all the different little aspects of every down to button colors in a UX, but at the same time having that experience, being able to work kind of at the 50,000 foot level with Shutterstock, and then work at the 5 foot level with all these startups. I think that's a really a good perspective for me to have here as I continue to build both on both strategies.
The seed landscape is changing rapidly. I feel like every week there is a new VC fund that is getting into seed. I'm curious what your secret sauce is, what the value add that you provide as an investor is, and why founders should think about going with you over dozens of other options and everyone trying to invest earlier and earlier.
Yeah, I do think, the seed stage is a really specific part of the entrepreneur kind of puzzle. I've been through it so many times myself, where I've started something and stopped that business. I've seen kind of how to run that multiple iron in the fire strategy. I think, my partner Ed Lando has done the same. Look, big VC firms have, they're important in this ecosystem, and I think the speed at which they run, I think it's a totally different strategy. I mean, they could build groups that do what we do. I think, we've taken every single aspect and reduced the amount of time and overhead in that process, right? So when it comes to funding, we don't have an investment committee. When it comes to funding, we don't have outside investors. We don't have a mandate. We don't have specific types of companies or stages that we invest in. We can do any type of investment that we want. And so that enables us to move faster than a typical organization with several layers would. I think it's a totally different thing. I mean, when you're finding a founder, you're talking to them about their idea. Yep. You're talking about putting the first few $100,000 into a bank account and getting them going. I don't think there's anybody that's moving faster than Pareto right now.
Not faster than 48 hours, I'm pretty sure. I do want to ask you a little bit about Miami life, because it's becoming such a hot topic, especially in startup and venture, with lots of investors and founders moving there in the last 18 months. What has been the biggest kind of observation change that you have noticed going from New York to Miami, and kind of the type of founders that you are seeing in Miami now versus maybe when you first moved there, because you were one of the earliest to move before it became popular even?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things. I mean, I lived in New York for 25 years. Went to grad school there at Columbia. New York's amazing. I think New York's a great place to start a business, and will continue to be a great place to start a business. Miami reminds me of New York in the early 2000s, where there was that initial traction. And tech scene kind of starting to move. I like that startup feel. I like that initial kind of super early stage of a business, of a city. I think it has a lot of those same aspects. And I think COVID has changed the way we work, like I mentioned earlier, and you can really optimize for different things. I'm in a different phase of my life right now, and Miami works for that. And I think, you can do a lot of these cities that it's not just Miami, it's places all over the country and all over the world that now are getting that type of momentum, which I think is great.
It's great. Last time I talked to you, you were shopping for office space. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is the value of office space these days? And, as you, I've heard variations of this from different CEOs. It's a gathering place. It's a home base for founders to go to. But, why are you shopping for office space, and what will be the primary use of the space that you eventually settle on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure either, honestly, what the use of the office space is. I'm not sure where to get it yet. And, we also haven't closed on it yet. So I continue to go back and forth on this. In Miami, it would be great to have a place where we can all meet up. At the same time, we're really productive, and having that flexibility of not being tied to one specific spot in the city is also nice. Also, so it's we all continue to learn how to work in this environment. I'm not sure if we need an office or not, but we'll probably be making that decision in the upcoming months.
For founders who ask you this question, what is the advice that you give them to, whether they need an office to start a company these days?
I don't think you do. I mean, we have startups, 15, 20 employees now that don't have or have very small office space. So they may have kind of like a shared co-working space that they use, and no one has a specific desk, but they kind of come and share that space. I do think that's the future of even larger companies, where instead of having this one mega headquarters, you're going to have 30 or 40 small offices around the world, and there'll be tools to kind of help you meet and work in these hybrid environments.
Great. This is a question I like to ask all successor founders and VCs. You could do anything in the world. You could be retired right now on a beach somewhere. Why are you still doing this, and why does this matter to you?
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself. I keep coming back to starting companies with founders because it's fun, and it's also a good thing. We're creating jobs, we're creating opportunity, we're helping people build their ideas and their dreams into these sustainable business entities, and I think that's really fun, and I continue to do it. There are some days though that I wonder, but it always wins out, and I keep doing this, so it must be.
Will we ever see you back in the CEO role? You're rolling up your sleeves and getting started with a lot of these companies, but will one strike your interest enough to leave the investment world and kind of go back into an operator role?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think my 25 year run as CEO there was a good one, and I learned a lot. And I'm looking forward to. I think Shutterstock was around 1,000 employees when 2 years ago I transitioned, and I think that's a good upper limit. I didn't know where the upper limit was. I didn't know if it would be 500 people, 100 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, but I definitely am not looking to run a larger organization than that. I like being back in the weeds with founders and running lots of different strategies at once. And I look forward to some of these entrepreneurs having 1,000-person employee bases of their own.
And I can't wait to cover them as they continue their journey and to see what you guys build in the future. Thank you so much, John, for your time. It's lovely to reconnect and have this conversation with you.
Great to see you too. Thanks.
Thank you both, Candy and John, so much. It was a very inspirational conversation. And while it's a pity, John, that we don't see you in an active role starting another company anymore, it is wonderful that you're supporting entrepreneurs. And I do hope somebody in the audience can pitch you and win your approval within 48 hours. So I do hope somebody takes you up on that. And I would love to hear next year at Techsylvania the success story on how somebody pitched you, John, and won your approval. Again, thank you both very much again for joining us. Very, very much appreciated. And thanks, Candy, specifically getting up early in Miami. Early in San Francisco and still early in Miami, John. So thank you both.
Thanks for having us
so much. Okay, have a wonderful day, both. Thank you.
Bye.